board member, a former law enforcement officer, retired lieutenant with the city of Palo Alto, and 30 years in law enforcement. And I joined the RIPA board about maybe 3.5 years ago. So everyone, welcome to this post-training and recruitment subcommittee. Thank you for joining us. Before we get busy, I'd like to introduce my co-chair, who sits with me on this committee, as well as all of the other RIPA board members who are on board today for this meeting. And then we have some news that we'd like to announce from two of us. But before we get to all that, I'd just like to have all of our RIPA board members introduce themselves. We have 2 new members that have joined us. And so I'm going to go ahead and start with our current members, and then we'll introduce the new ones, can self-introduce themselves. So I've already introduced myself. Who's next from the RIPA board that's on our subcommittee today? LaWanda, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is LaWanda Hawkins, and I'm from Southern California, and I'd like to welcome all the new members.
Thank you, LaWanda. Melanie?
Hi, I'm Melanie Ochoa. I'm a staff attorney at the ACLU of Southern California, and also from Southern California, Los Angeles.
Thank you, Melanie. Appreciate that. Who else besides Angela that sits on our committee that are board members? If you can speak up, we'd like to see your face if you can.
Hello, my name is Edgar Hampton. I'm currently an officer with the Anaheim Police Department. I'm also on the PORAC Executive Board. I've been here in Anaheim for 19 years. Before that, I was a deputy down in San Diego for 5 years.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hey, Sandra, I just want to interject. If folks are not speaking, can you put your microphone on mute, because there's a lot of feedback.
Maybe the commissioner and then the other new board member.
I am getting that feedback a little bit.
I think I heard my name.
Yes, Commissioner, go for it.
Okay, wonderful.
Commissioner, hold on 1 second. We cannot hear you very clearly. You're getting some major feedback. So if I can announce to all the persons that are on this call, whether you are a citizen, a board member, a DOJ employees, if you guys can all please put your microphones on mute so we don't get cross feedback. If you are in the room with someone else that is also on this call on a separate computer or camera, all those also need to be set on mute so that we can hear. And Commissioner, I apologize for cutting you off, but we were getting almost every 3rd or 4th word from you. If you don't mind starting over again, thank you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And I guess I couldn't hear the experience on my side as well. But it's doing it again on my side. Can you hear me?
We are getting feedback. Are you dialed in on a separate line than Blue Jeans?
I am not. I actually am just doing my computer.
Now, that actually sounded okay just now. So I'll try again.
So I'm Amanda Ray. I've been the commissioner now since November of last year, but I've been with the department now 31 years as of this month. So definitely looking forward to listening and interacting with the board and meeting each and every one of you. So, thanks for having me.
Thank you and welcome. And have we missed any other RIPA board members that haven't spoken up yet?
Yes, our newest member. Ronnie?
Ronaldo. Yes.
Ronaldo?
Yeah, I can introduce myself.
Please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ronaldo Villeda. Just super excited to be here. A little daunting knowing that I'm the youngest person on this board. But yeah, I'm just really excited to be here. I can't wait to see what you guys are doing and how I can contribute with my lived experience.
Thank you. Youngest member on the board. Awesome. We need some new ideas, maybe. Thank you. And then I also see, Aisha, we have Pastor Brian Kennedy.
Yes, I don't know whether he's on.
Okay. And do you have any information about him at all?
Oh, boy. I know he is a pastor from Ontario, Southern California. That's about all I know. His church is Mount Zion in Ontario, and he is excited to join the board. So we are happy to have him. And he is filling the religious clergy members position.
And we do have more information. We didn't expect you to ask us, Sandra.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just didn't want to leave his name hanging out there.
Thank you, Nancy.
I'm sorry. Okay. And then, Angela, do you want to go?
Yes, thank you, Sandra. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Angela Sierra. I'm an attorney with the California Department of Justice. I've been with our office over 33 years in a number of different capacities, including as our chief of our Public Rights Division. And I've been the Attorney General's designee on the RIPA board. I joined the board at its inception in July of 2016, and I wanted to let the board members and staff and members of the public who have joined us today that I will be stepping down from the board as of the end of this week, and so this will be my last subcommittee meeting. Last week, the Attorney General appointed me to the governing board for what will be a newly created state agency. It's called the California Privacy Protection Agency, and I'm going to need to focus my attention to that new role. I just wanted to say a few words, if I may. It's just really been an incredible honor to have served on this board since its inception, and I'm so proud of the work that we have accomplished, and I'll be very excited to see the board's continued progress. I want to thank all of the board members, past and current, and you, as well as our phenomenal GOJ personnel, including all the members from the Civil Rights Enforcement Section and CJIS, including its research center, and all the members of the public who have participated, including all the community members, advocates, members of law enforcement, researchers, and other stakeholders. I want to thank you all for all your hard work and contributions. Your dedication and commitment has been unparalleled, and the experience of working with all of you has been extremely rewarding. So thank you for all you do, and I will be watching with great interest to your continued success. So thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And it's me again, Sandra Brown. So on that note, I also have to make an announcement that I will be leaving the RIPA board. I was appointed by the Senate Pro Tem a few years ago. I have enjoyed, initially I was just part of the subcommittee and then I became a board member, and I've enjoyed my time. This is an important and international conversation. I'm very proud to say that I sat on a board where we really paid close attention to what was going on. We brought in new issues, new training, new ideas about implicit bias within policing. I still work for fair and impartial policing, so I will continue my training throughout the continent and hopefully internationally. But as I've sat on this board and I've listened to the important topics and how it feels to the community members throughout the state, we've been to several meetings from Northern California to Southern California to hear how important this topic is to the community members within the communities we serve. I know for sure that the RIPA board, all the work they've done will continue. I trust that it will go forward. I've had a great time working with POST. I am also on the subcommittee for calls for service. And I think all of the work that you all are doing and will continue to do has been probably one of the most proudest things that I've done outside of being a law enforcement officer in the state of California. So I know that they will continue. I have made myself available if there are any questions. I'm moving to Georgia on Monday, and then hopefully in a year moving to live out my retirement life and continue spreading the word about implicit bias. So thank you for allowing me to be on board. And thank you to all the folks that I've got to know very well as friends. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I believe that Brendan has now joined us.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm here. Thank you. I'm sorry for being late. I'm dealing with an emergency right now at the same time as this meeting is occurring, so I apologize for that, but I'm here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can I just ask, are there any other board members that are on the call that have not introduced themselves? If we can get that done, and if they're not, we'll go forward and get the meeting started. Anybody else that hasn't introduced themselves?
This is Melanie. I just really quickly want to say that we are really gonna miss you and Angela as members of this board, the board, and members of this committee, because I do think you both had so much valuable insight, and we appreciate, well, at least I appreciate both of you moving these conversations forward and bringing, new thoughts to the way that we're approaching these issues that we're facing as members of this board. So I really appreciate your contributions, and you're going to be two significant losses going forward on this board. But good luck on your next phases for both of you.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Melanie.
Okay, so I don't hear anything else. Again, I just want to reiterate having our microphones, and that also includes me when I'm not speaking. I will go on mute if I can find it. Let's start our first order of business. I'd like to talk about approving the October 7th, 2020 Post-Training and Recruitment Subcommittee meetings. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Melanie again. I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate that. Any abstentions? As I'm moving everything around. Nope, I don't see any. Awesome. Okay. Our second order of business is we're going to receive several updates from the Department of Justice and from Post. I'm going to hand that over. And Aisha, I understand you're going to open that part of the meeting up and start the update this afternoon, I was told.
Yes, I think that we're going to have from Allison or Kendall or Dominique, who's going to give you an update on the AB 953 training.
Okay. The president, there we go.
Hi, everybody. Hi. As I was introduced, my name is Dominique Alcaraz. For some of the new folks on the board, I am one of the attorneys in the Civil Rights Enforcement section that helps you all get through your work through the year. So you will be familiar with my face. So nice to meet you virtually. But today I'm just here to give a short update to you all about our post-certified AB 953 training. For those of you that are new, the DOJ created a training that got post-certified this year that basically trains officers on what data elements need to be collected and how to collect that data. It also includes information on what RIPA is, why RIPA is, and how agencies can work with DOJ to submit their data. The training is provided by folks like myself from CRES, the Civil Rights Enforcement section, but it is also provided by our partners in the Client Services section. We have thus far in 2020 done 4 trainings, and the trainings were so popular that we have had to essentially double the courses that we are providing this year, and that is because most of the way for agencies, which are the 400 plus agencies, want to get started or prepare earlier for their data collection time. In the 4 courses that we have done this year, we have had a total of 146 participants. and 116 of those received continuing professional training credits through POST. The course, folks can participate in the course and not get certified, and then people can participate or get certified. It really depends on their participation and the ability to have webcam, for example. We have to be able to see folks while we're doing the training. What we wanted to do is also open it up to the POST subcommittee members. We know that we shared portions of the training with you all at a previous subcommittee meeting and received your feedback, which we incorporated. But we figured that it would be an awesome opportunity. We'd love to get more feedback from you all, and want to provide the option for you all to attend one of our trainings. We have them essentially twice a month from here on out until the end of the year. And if somebody wants to attend the training simply to attend and not to receive any kind of certification or credits, you can attend any of the ones that are upcoming, which would be May 4th, May 18th, or June 15th. If you want to receive credit, say I know we have some law enforcement members here on the board as well, you can attend either our June 29th, July 6th, or July 20th training. And so basically the training takes it's usually from 9 to 11:45. So it is a big chunk of time with some breaks in between. But, we would love to have folks come in and see what we're doing and see if the training is sort of up to the RIPA board standards as well. So we would love to have you all join us if you would like. And essentially what you'll just do is let us know that you want to attend, and we can send you the link to get onto the Blue Jeans event for the training. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Dominique. All right, now we will move to hearing a short presentation from Megan Katafi with POST. She is the legislative coordinator for POST, and she's going to give an update on the recommendations that the subcommittee and the board included in its 2021 report to the POST Commission. And she's going to share some other highlights, including the next POST Commission meeting. Thanks, Megan.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm going to look at my other screen here just because that's where my notes are, so I don't want you to think I'm being rude by looking at the other screen and not at you all. So the POST Commission met last on February 24th, and were presented the 9 recommendations from the 2021 RIPA report. Of the 9 recommendations, I can say that all of them are being considered by POST staff, with the exception of recommendations 8 and 9, which would require either a POST regulation or legislation to enact those recommendations. So these items were all presented as information to the Commission. There was no action taken during the meeting. And POST will continue to work with DOJ and RIPA board members to ensure that these recommendations are considered as we move forward with training development or updates. There is one recommendation that I did want to bring up. That was number 2. The recommendation was to use actual footage of law enforcement encounters in lieu of scripted scenarios. So POST doesn't use actual footage of law enforcement encounters for a few reasons. First, it's not a smart practice to use good or bad footage of any incident because it doesn't always capture the entire incident. We don't always know what happened in the background. Maybe it went to court. We don't know how the case ended up. It also doesn't set a very good precedent to single out an agency as to what, again, is good or bad. And it also, lastly, leaves POST vulnerable to any sort of liability if we use, let's say, some footage from a car chase in Ohio. And Ohio gets word that California Post is using their YouTube video as an example of what not to do. Their post could be liable for using that footage. So I just wanted to bring that forward because that's why Post uses scripted scenarios in all of its training. And that's my report on the commission meeting.
Megan, can you share when the next commission meeting?
Yes, absolutely. So the next commission meeting is June 2nd and 3rd. They start the meeting on June 2nd at 1 p.m. It goes from 1 until 5 p.m. And if we don't finish all of the agenda items on the 2nd, then we start at 9 a.m. on June 3rd. And then after that, it's October 20th and 21st. It's the same schedule, starting at 1 p.m. on the 20th and, if necessary, 9 a.m. on the 21st.
Does anyone have any questions for Megan? If not, that's okay. She's graciously agreed to stay on the call in case something else comes up and you have questions. Thanks a lot, Megan. Yes.
One real quick question. I just wanted to know whether or not Megan would also provide an update on the meeting with the AB 846 SME panel. My understanding was that you were going to also provide us with an update on that meeting that took place last Wednesday or Thursday.
I am prepared to do that. I didn't know, Aisha, if you want me to do that now or later on the agenda.
Aisha, we have a bullet point for that. That's under the AB 846 and the law enforcement hiring, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So we do have a bullet point for that if you want to. We want to wait for that.
Is it your pleasure to wait until that item?
Yeah, if we could keep it in order.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Megan. Thanks for hanging out. Next item is, in terms of the DOJ board update, is just an overview of the training. And what I'd like to do is go over 4 items with the training. Okay, I'm going to try to see if I can. Okay, here we go. So in your packet, in your materials, you should have received 4 items. One is a overview of the course, 5 courses that were recommended by the board in the last report. Let me see, I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you. Hold on, give me 1 second here. There we go. Okay. So what you're looking at is a summary of 5 courses.
Aisha, right now I'm not able to see. Yeah, we're not able to see a screen share.
Oh, you're not? Okay. How about now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, for our new members, AB 953 requires that every police officer in the state participate in expanded training related to racial and identity profiling and implicit bias. And then after the officers receive that training, then once every 5 years, or on an as-needed basis, the officers then are required to take courses in the same area as a refresher. So Post, after the bill was passed, Post got busy and started developing courses in racial and identity profiling. And consulting with the board, these are the 5 courses that the board has been working with POST on and starting to evaluate. So there are 2 courses that are for new recruits, and they are academy courses. They're on your left. Principal Policing in the Community, which is a 26-hour in-person course, and Cultural Diversity Discrimination, which is a 16-hour course. And then on the in-service side, which is the courses for officers that are already working, we have 3 courses. Now, the subcommittee has been active, and they have reviewed the Bias and Racial Profiling 2-hour video course that was produced by POST, and they are in the process of reviewing the Profiling and Implicit Bias Refresher course, again for in-service officers. So moving down, this is what the hard work that the board has been engaged with. So the 2-hour video, there was participation by the board in the pre-production and on the post-production. And as a result of that, the POST has incorporated comments by the subject matter expert that was originally assigned, and that was board member Lytle in 2018. We're now in the middle. Some of you have provided comments as recent as a few days ago, which we really appreciate, and that is the Profiling Impact Bias Self-Paced Refresher course. And this is a course that officers can take online and just comply with that requirement. So initially, in 2018, there were several board members who provided feedback to POST in the initial development. And then they rolled out their initial prototype of the course, and we had more board members who participated in the review. And as recent again as last week, POST is now made some changes, updated it, and has now asked for additional reviews. So we've had board member Ochoa, Ray, Espinoza, Raphael, Hampton, and Swing comment recently. And so we just turned that information in, those comments in. We've also added DOJ comments and provided those to POST. And so we're going to wait and see what the next product is as they roll that out and move towards post-production. And that course, I believe POST is anticipating completing this year. And then there is a supervisor's course version of this profiling and implicit bias course, which Megan, you might have some information on that. I know it's in development, but the board hasn't seen it, but maybe you can give some insight as to when the subcommittee might be asked to look at this course.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we are estimating the first draft of the supervisor module to be available for review the week of April 20th. The next draft after that for review will be the week of May 17th. And that's we would ask for a 1 to 2 week feedback turnaround. So those are the dates that we expect to be reaching out to request review.
Okay. Thank you. And with that, this would be a good time to mention that POST has requested that if at all possible, it would be great if the subcommittee might think about identifying 1 or 2 subcommittee members that might be able to look at their schedules and participate throughout the entire rollout of the course. And so that's something that we would like you all to think about. But as with all of these courses, it's good having as much feedback as possible, but we think it would help POST. They've indicated it would help them if there was at least 1 or 2 people that we're the quote go-to people from the subcommittee. So kind of keep that thought with you. Okay, and then next we have the academy courses. So our 2 academy courses, this is where we are right now. So looking back at past minutes, past meetings, discussions, reports, the board has, in looking at this group of 5 courses, are now have now decided for this year, for the 2022 report, to consider looking closely in an in-depth way at either the principal policing in community course and or the cultural diversity course. Now let me see if I can do this. I'd like to show you another couple screens. So today what we'd like you to do is to discuss how you might want to evaluate 1 or 2 of these courses. We've got about 6 months for that to happen, and there's about 8 folks on the subcommittee, so you've got several options as to how you might want to go about that. So let's see if I can, I'm just learning how to share my screen, so please bear with me, see if I can pull up this other document. Voila, okay. So here's the first one, principal policing in the community. So I wanted to just show you.
We don't see it, Aisha.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Let me try it again. I have to go back to go back here, screen share, hit share. There. There you go. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I just wanted to show you that just as you kind of talk about what might be some of the approaches to evaluate this course this year for inclusion in the annual report, you can just kind of see there's 6 chapters. Chapter 3, effective law enforcement contacts. 4, sexual orientation. 5, hate crimes, sexual harassment. So I wanted to just give you an idea of if you decided to do one of these courses, that the module shows the chapters and they're pretty self-contained. So you might want, 4 of you might want to work on it, or 3 people, or 2. And again, the time frame would be tied to the writing of the report. And we can give you a little bit more information later with respect to those dates. But it would be great if you could take a few minutes and talk about how you might want to approach that today. So Sandra, I'd like to turn it back over to you, and what I'll do is I'll pull up the other one, but it's also 6 chapters.
So Aisha, you were saying, in minusing Angela and myself, on this post-training and recruitment, there are still 8 board members from RIPA that are on this? Because I think and we talked about this yesterday, the more that we can have involved on these, going over these videos, if there's 6, 2, 4, 6, 8, you can put, that's not enough. I would think that each of us, if I were still on the board, I would take up one. Each of the board members would look at one of the training modules, go through it. Maybe a couple can take on 2 different ones. I mean, it's easy, and I feel bad. It's easy for me to say because I'm walking out of here. But I recall last year or a couple of years ago in 2018 when we pulled up the first training video, I spent a lot of time on that. And I think that we need more, and I hope Megan and Post agrees, we need more than just one person on the board looking at this training. And so I hate to just throw on work again because I'm leaving, but I think it's important that each member have at least contact with one of those training modules to go through and see what's going on. And it looks like we might have enough that we can hit all 6 of them. There's 6 of them, right?
Yes. Yes. On both.
Both. Okay. So, going forward, and then we need to look at all the training for the next meeting. So do we have 6 months to go? We do have 6 months to go through all that, right? At least? Good. Okay.
We would have to be done by September.
Okay, good. All right. I mean, I know that I'm in charge of the meeting and I feel really bad, but I think that Ripper needs to be involved. It is very difficult to have one person, and God rest her soul, Judge Lytle did such a good job, but I think especially with the new members that are on board, and I know Ronaldo was talking about how young he is, and that's awesome, but maybe he brings a whole different perspective at looking at these videos. And Ronaldo, I didn't get what you do, which I think would be important. As the new member, what is your occupation?
I work for the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I am the advocacy and community organizer out of the LA office. I mainly focus on county level initiatives around juvenile justice reform, but I also do state level.
Awesome, that's impressive. So I think you're a good addition to the Ripper board. And it doesn't take much. Sorry, I've had 8 trainings every day, in a row. My voice is cracking. It doesn't really take that much to go into it, and I believe that Post would really appreciate the feedback. But I think we need more than just one person to be involved. We have different ideas, from different angles. I think it's important. Melanie brings in the ACLU ideology, so much different from me coming into law enforcement. And then we have our new, the commissioner comes in with a whole new ideas of how we can look at these trainings. So I think it's important that we get involved in all 6.
One more thing to keep in mind is you also can have a third subcommittee meeting. You have one coming up in the fall, but you can also have an additional one if the subcommittee would like to go through the training and then come together as a group in a public meeting to bring it all together.
So Aisha, with that, do you mean maybe prior to the fall meeting, maybe over the summertime?
Yes.
And then that would be up to whoever, Melanie, you and I are co-chairs on this, aren't we? Yeah, so Melanie needs another, there you go. Melanie?
She said yes, we're co-chairs.
Okay, so then, so there you go, Aisha, we figured it out today. Oh, wait, it was Nancy and I were going through that. Okay, so then she would need a co-chair and they can discuss when they want to have those meetings. That would be awesome, because I really think we need to pay a lot of attention to it. We gave a lot of attention back in 2018, 2019, and obviously COVID changed the entire idea of what we were doing, but I think it's important that we get involved. Oh, there's Allison.
Hi, everyone. So I did want to, the Academy review is not videos right now, so it's a different type of review. What we have is the curriculum from the Academy courses, and so I think it's really up to the board to decide, between the two, there are 2 Academy courses. Do you want to just focus on one this year and have multiple members reviewing those 6 modules together? And then, I think the main thing for Post is there needs to be one person who, there needs to be continuity from beginning to end, because, these courses start with the curriculum, then maybe they go live or they turn into videos. And so there needs to be continuity with at least with one board member who's kind of the point person. That doesn't mean that other board members can't contribute and offer their perspectives, but they want one person who's kind of the through line from beginning to end, and then if other board members want to participate, figure out a way to work together so that the one board member can be kind of the board's representative, or 1 to 2 people can be the board's representative with Post as kind of part of the subject matter expert team.
Okay. So like a point of contact, but bringing in everybody else's voices to Post Allison, correct?
Yes, and Megan can also jump in and clarify, but that was our understanding, was basically if you know, because there is a team of subject matter experts as the subject matter experts in essence for that course. And then if other board members, you know, as we've done in the past, want to contribute, I think we can probably figure out a way to do that as long as those 1 to 2 board members are the representatives.
This is a little bit related to that. Can you clarify exactly what the ask is? I guess I'm a little bit fuzzy on what the nature of the participation is supposed to be. Like, I know for some of the other courses, at least for the video courses, like the subject matter experts do like multiple days of like back-to-back meetings or full-day meetings and engage. These are going to be just looking at coursework, but is this just the outlines of stuff that's kind of on the documents that Aisha circulated and giving feedback on the documents? Are things going to be, where are they kind of in the process? Like, are all of our comments going to be incorporated, or is it going to be kind of like the videos where we saw them kind of towards the end, and like maybe super high level things can be incorporated, or like actually minor things, but not like high level framing things? I'm really unclear about the ask and the time, so to like weigh the time commitment or appropriateness for that. So that'd be helpful to just clarify.
Megan, do you want to speak to that? You have more of the background
Sure.
on some of these.
No, I'm happy to. So the workbooks that Aisha was showing you are the Academy workbooks that are used to teach the minimum requirements at the Academy level. So both of these workbooks that are online, they're available to the public, are what we call learning domains. And the learning domains contain so much information for whatever the title of that domain may be. Now, out of AB 953, there are some requirements in both of those learning domains that hosts must have in there by law. So I think those are the components that the board is being asked to look at. I certainly will not speak for DOJ staff, but I just want to point out that there's a lot of elements in both of those domains that might not all pertain to RIPA. So there's also online the training and testing specifications that go with each workbook. And those are what recruits are tested on while they're at the academy. And that's also something that can't be changed. So there's no deadline. These are live living documents. So feedback is taken at any time. But I believe the board's charge is what's in accordance to AB 953.
Thank you, Megan. And so the board's review of these was in response, you know, the board had requested last year, well, you know, we're getting to review these refresher courses and videos, but we also want to see what's happening in the academy. So that's at least now what we have from the academy courses that the board can, you know, review and contribute. And so what we wanted to do today was figure out how the subcommittee wanted to proceed with those reviews, and whether you wanted to have 1 to 2 people focus on each one, whether one person wanted to review the whole thing and take comments from other board members. But that's sort of what we wanted to figure out with all of you today.
And then in terms of, so if I'm looking at the right document, that this actually is like the workbook, it seems, I won't say high level, but I mean, is this kind of all of the information that is provided, that the training is premised upon? Or kind of, is it like, if you memorize these kind of principles, then that's what the test is on? It's like memorization of these principles? Is it like application of these principles? Is there more information provided by the trainer that kind of expands on these things? Like, I'm just trying to understand kind of how the pieces fit into what that training actually looks like, and kind of where we're being asked to just like key in.
So I can only speak to the post perception, but so the workbooks are based on the minimum requirements that post is charged with.
So there are 40 different police academies in the state of California. They can expand on any of these topics as much as they would like to, but that is the minimum that they are required to teach that you see in those workbooks. Each one's going to be different on this as far as how they want to expand on that.
Oh, let's see. Edgar Hampton, you've raised your hand?
Yes, just a couple things. One, I'll definitely be interested in any sort of additional help you require as far as the board. The other thing is, from my understanding, it's also post requirements for dispatchers, and they fall under post requirements as well, correct?
Yes, dispatchers are under the post program.
Yes. And so my question would be, in addition to focusing on the officer's involvement in this, I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that many of these contacts are as a result of a call for service, and so we need to make sure that we're capturing the dispatch component for these training, all of these training videos and things like that, so that they're not excluded from the process. Because I think that's a key component that we don't focus on, is the fact that there's somebody on the receiving end of that phone call that's dispatching officers to a lot of these calls for service.
That is something, sorry, there's somebody typing, so if you are not muted, if you could please mute yourself, thank you. So we are, in terms of this subcommittee's review of the trainings, I think we can potentially take a look at dispatch at a later time. Right now, and I will say also the calls for service subcommittee is also looking at dispatch and looking at policies and training around dispatch, particularly as it pertains to bias by proxy or bias-based calls for service. So that is something that the calls for service subcommittee has been looking at already. This subcommittee can also request to look at those trainings too. But I think at least for this year, in terms of cabining, and keeping it doable in terms of what the board is able, subcommittee is able to do. Because what we're trying to do is have the review done in time to have the feedback in the next report that gets published on January 1. And so I think if there's the supervisor's course that it sounds like will become available, and then there is also this academy course. I think that's probably sufficient in terms of the time and resources of the subcommittee now, but we can certainly look at the dispatch course for future review. I think it's just probably too much to try to tackle at this point, given the resources and availability of the subcommittee, and in terms of the timing that everybody needs to do a full-fledged review.
It looks like we're still trying to find out who is not muted. If everybody can look at their microphones and make sure that they are off. We're getting some background noise. Aisha, are you back on? We're going to now go in. Do we have any other questions about the post-training review? Mm-hmm.
So I know, Megan, you mentioned that the agencies can expand on these minimum guidelines, but are these guidelines being taught solely through the text in this document, or are they being provided something else that expands on what nonverbal signals actually look like, or anything like this? Seems like an outline in a way that really understanding these things requires more discussion or visual aids or whatever. So I don't know, are they being taught and tested solely on memorizing these principles, or is there something else that accompanies this, because I feel like that kind of rubber hits the road element might be where there's more potential issues, versus the concept of like pay attention to nonverbal signals. What does that actually look like? What are things are being taught as like these are examples of X. That's my still question is what exists, and then what are we only being asked to engage in this if there's other things that fall into that training rubric.
I will do my best to answer your question. So those are the basic workbooks that they do work off of. Like I said earlier, the training and testing specifications are all online. You can see what they're actually being tested on. They are required, every academy is required to give us what we call an expanded course outline that will show more detail for course certification. So if you wanted to see what the College of Siskiyous is teaching at their academy, we could certainly look into what that outline shows as far as like how they're expanding off of that workbook, if that helps at all.
No, I'm still trying to understand. So this is Post's workbook. Am I not correct in saying Post has a test also?
We provide what they should be tested on, yes.
Yeah. So is there anything else that Post creates that is not this workbook that connects to this workbook? Or is it just, this is a workbook, we give these to the agencies can do other stuff if they want, they might not, they might. Is that the situation?
Yes. So but if they do more, they have to tell us what they're doing. So that would be in that expanded course outline.
Thank you. No, I don't understand.
So just to close the loop, is it the subcommittee's pleasure to maybe look at one of these courses? Because we can at DLJ go back and maybe drill down with Post what sections of that course tie with the racial and identity profiling requirements in the Act. But just looking at the two, there's several, but because they're two courses with 6 chapters each, I think you'd have an opportunity to weigh into what the state of California is teaching officers by at least this year, perhaps starting with your expressed interest of beginning to look at one of the academy courses. So this is a starting place, and you can go to clearly other areas. But if you are still interested in looking at the academy course, then this may be one of the things to decide today, is to at least pick one, have us come back and bring you a little bit more detailed information. And that would give the subcommittee time to think about who might be able to participate in which course, the academy course or the supervisor's course. Would that be helpful?
Aisha? I have a question. I just want to make sure I understand. Since these courses are already live, there's no deadline. So if the subcommittee chose one to focus on this year, the board could do another one the following year.
Correct.
And Post could still consider all the suggestions, even if it is not this year but next year. Okay.
In some ways, it's really at the subcommittees, depending on all of your time and resources and desire to review both the supervisor's course and this academy course. And if you'd like to divide them up and decide 2 people will review one person will do another. So it really depends on what you all would like to do. So I think at a minimum, that would be helpful to ascertain today in terms of who has an interest in reviewing these courses, and if there's one in particular that you'd like to focus on, because we can then follow up with all of you and with Post to make the connection.
This is Board Member LaWanda. I would like to review the course, and I would like to review the one for the supervisors.
Great.
Thank you, LaWanda.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Lawanda said. She said she would like to review something and then it was, I couldn't understand.
The supervisor's course. Did you copy Melanie? Okay. Anybody else interested in then looking at the academy course? Awesome. I see a hand. I see two hands up, Ronald and Edgar. And Melanie. Allison, you're writing that stuff down?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And I guess one other thing, if Ronaldo and Edgar and Melanie would like to review the academy course, whether one to two of you would like to be the main point person on that and have the others contribute their feedback. And we can try to work out with you the best way to do that. But if you know, rather than having separate comments from three people, it would be helpful, I think, if there was one person who's kind of the point person, and then we can determine the best way with all of you to get comments, to incorporate everybody's comments.
You wouldn't like me to do it, I'd do it. I don't know if having the law enforcement component is necessarily the best way to do it, but if you want me to do it, I don't have a problem in doing it.
I think I can be the point person if you guys are okay with that.
Great. Well, why don't we can work with Post to see whether it's better to have both of you or to have just one of you as point person. But we'll figure out with all of you the best way to do this review and to make sure that all the feedback gets to Post. And we can decide with the co-chairs as well, as Aisha said earlier, if you'd like to have another subcommittee meeting to discuss some of your review as well.
Hey, this is Nancy. I just want to piggyback on what Allison was saying. I think that if you guys wanted to do a follow-up subcommittee, it could be just really, it could be shorter just to discuss. You know, we don't have to set something for 2 hours every time we meet. So you could all do it that way because, sorry, I thought I was, so oops, that's my finger. So because we have to do all these meetings in the public, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bagley-Keene Act in the next full board meeting. But because we're limited by that, like when we can have these discussions, we can't really like converse with more than 2 board members at a time about substantive issues. We could just set something for 30 minutes if we wanted to. It would have to be a publicly noticed meeting, but it could be much shorter. And it's not the best, but it would be a way for you all to communicate and touch base on everything. So that's a possibility as well.
It does seem like having then a follow-up meeting, as you suggest, would help with consistency, you know, and see if some of the same themes that several of the board subcommittee members are seeing, you know, before actually forwarding the recommendations. And that would help. I think it is great to have so many different perspectives look at it, and a lot is gained by that. But would be very interesting to see, like, where do we see the similar issues, in different chapters, or there may be things that different subcommittee members raise that maybe will, could help me if I were looking at chapters like, I didn't think about that. Let me go back and take a look. So it seems like that would be very helpful.
So we can certainly work on setting up a subcommittee meeting that's just focused on the academy training and allow time for the reviewers to review. And then if anyone else in the subcommittee also wishes to review, you can bring your thoughts and ideas to that subcommittee meeting as well.
Okay. Aisha, we have one more section that we have to hit. You're muted, Aisha.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Tony from the department, who's going to lead the discussion on AB 846.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Jackson, and or Tony Jackson. Tony's fine, and I am the senior legal analyst with Civil Rights Enforcement Section, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about AB 846, legislation that was recently passed in September of 2020, and the impact that it has on Post. So AB 846 requires Post to study, review, and update regulations and screening materials to identify explicit and implicit bias against the prohibited categories related to emotional and mental condition evaluations. So this was the intent of the legislation here was to focus in on the screening and the evaluation process when evaluating for, among other mental issues, to now be included bias, and specifically implicit and explicit bias. And there is an accompanying provision that is part of that was added to the penal code as well, and I'll share that with you. As part of this this legislation, California agencies are now required to review job descriptions, so that these job descriptions will emphasize community-based policing, and while de-emphasizing the paramilitary aspects of the job. So the goal here at the end of the day with AB 846 is for Post to take a look at those the screening evaluations for those candidates, Post candidates, to evaluate them among other things in the psychological evaluation, to also evaluate for bias, and for Post to take the mantle of leading agencies in taking a look at their current job descriptions and to de-emphasize the paramilitary aspect while emphasizing the community-based policing. So that is AB 846. We bring that up because we have involvement with Post to assist them in this process. We will, and I think Megan can speak to this a little bit more clear, but we will have a role in helping to implement this legislation with Post. We've just begun the beginning phases of working with Post, and currently my understanding is that Post right now they've already begun their planning stages, and I'll have Megan maybe go into that a little bit more. But currently Post they've already put together a subject matter expert panel of notable implicit bias, explicit bias experts, They've already begun the initial framework for how they want to go about the research and how they want to establish the evaluation process. I have had some contact with the AB 846 Representative Melanie Singley, and as of right now, like I said, we're at the beginning stages. We're working closely with Post to, I guess, gain a better sense of when we will be involved in the process. And I think maybe due to the fact that we typically will come in and begin with research or begin with looking at research questions, looking at identifying the issues and addressing those issues. This is something that we won't be doing in this case because they have an expert panel. So I think maybe the recommendation that I'd like to throw out to the board today, and I'll let Megan jump in here first, but one of the things that I guess I would throw out there is that maybe we not only look at the hiring as it's related to AB 846, but possibly look at best hiring practices outside of that as well. And that could even date back to some of the things that we discussed, I believe, in our last meeting. You know, some of those issues were incongruent relationships between the police officer and the individual, black and blue policing, the organizational the organizational makeup of an agency, and the ability to change decision making. So we discussed things like critical mass, the ability of a number of individuals to come into a workforce, diverse individuals coming into an agency, and eventually over time maybe shaping shifting the culture of that particular agency towards away from bias and towards openness and mindfulness. But before we go maybe into that discussion, if Megan, if you could step in and just maybe provide an update from that most recent meeting with the SME panel, the AB 846 SME panel.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So the initial introductory meeting was in February, and the panel met for a second time last week on March 19th, as Anthony mentioned. So their next panel meeting is scheduled for April 22nd. I don't know if you want me to go over what they discussed at the last meeting or who the panel members are, or how detailed you want me to be.
It'd be great if you could just go into a general discussion of maybe what they covered. If you want to maybe discuss some of the panel members, that would be great as well. Thanks.
So the the panel consists of Dr. David Corey. He is the chair of the panel. Dr. Karen, I'm going to butcher some names, so I apologize to these individuals ahead of time. Dr. Karen Amendola, Dr. Jack DeVideo, and Dr. Calvin Lay. And as you mentioned, Melanie Singley from Post is our project manager on this. We had asked Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt to be a panel member, and she initially accepted, but then determined that her schedule wasn't going to allow her to be consistent with the project, so she backed out, and I believe we're looking at possibly another individual, but not sure of who that will be just yet. So some of the things that the panel has identified is like kind of their task list as to what they want to work on for March and April. Were to identify targeted constructs, so predictive of bias. So we're talking behaviors, attitudes, personality, identify aggravating, facilitating factors, and potentially mitigating protective factors of these constructs within the context of background investigations, written instruments, and the psychological interview. To draft a new chapter or section of the Post Peace Officer Psychological Screening Manual to address the assessment of bias in peace officer candidates, explore other competencies and attributes that may moderate the effects of bias, develop and identify tools and or resources for assessing, identifying inter-cross-cultural competence in screening psychologists, review sociology and other related fields for sources relevant to identifying bias, gather information on hate group membership characteristics, traits, symbols, etc., and then identify stakeholder groups and members to review recommendations. So I know, Tony, that Melanie's definitely been in contact with you and will continue to be in contact with you as she moves forward with this panel. We definitely want RIPA's involvement on this.
I'm sorry, Megan, do you mind repeating the last 3 bullet points you said?
Sure. So, and I'm happy to provide these to Aisha or Allison as well to send out. So review sociology and other related fields for sources relevant to identifying bias, gather information on hate group membership characteristics, and identify stakeholder groups and members to review recommendations.
If I may, I know my agency has just changed the job flyer to match, to meet in accordance to the new bill. I don't know how many other agencies are doing so, but I think that'd be interesting to see how the breakdown of the cities that have already adjusted their job application flyers to meet the new language that's being added as a result of the legislation.
Yep. Officer Hampton, actually, I would be interested in taking a look at the some of the changes that have been made, the job description before and what it looks like now, in light of the legislation.
Okay, yeah, let me see if I can get some side-by-side screenshots of it, and then I'll send it.
Be great. I did want to, so with Megan's comments, I think I wanted to maybe open up the floor here for discussion on, as it relates to AB 846, comments that you might have, and where do we go now as a board? What interests do you have? What can we, what can we really focus in on, whether it's within context of AB 846 or not? What is it that we're interested in relative to best practices in hiring? And I'm throwing that out to the board. I know I was able to meet yesterday with Sandra and Melanie, and a number of great recommendations. So I don't know if Sandra wanted to jump in.
Yeah, so I just have a real quick question, and Megan, just to clarify for everybody, that Post does not hire. Post, and so that's one good thing that's to note, that all the agencies within California hire. They have different testing programs. We all have different methods and procedures. Some agencies do a multiple choice, some don't. Megan, I think what the board is looking forward to is there any way that we can have a standardized list of information, or all of a sudden I can't think of what I was looking for, Anthony, standardized list of how hiring is supposed to occur, so that we're all testing the same way, we're all looking at the same, types of processes, so that the outcome across the state is similar. Because in my experiences in policing with Palo Alto, we had multiple choice. We had the candidate come in and sit down for a meeting with maybe a community member was involved. maybe members from another agency just on the interview portion. And then that person kept going forward. If we agreed, they would go to the next step and the next step and the next step. But I don't necessarily know that all agencies in California are doing the same processes. And so, Megan, I would ask you, do you know if we're still varied? I've been gone now for 10 years. Are we still varied in the way that we do recruiting? Or are we looking, because it would be nice if Post was able to say, these are the processes we should be using in California, including the implicit bias and all that. I'm stop talking because Megan's ready to answer.
So Post, like you said, doesn't do hiring or recruiting. Our job is to basically provide the minimum standards for screening officers.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you know, with law, state laws, that they have to have eligibility. So what AB 846 is going to have us do is add this component to our screening process. But I know that I don't know if there's a one size fits all remedy that can fit every agency in this state or what their needs are as far as hiring goes. But our job at Post is to provide, you know, the tools that they need. But I don't have a direct answer to your question.
Because there's over 600 agencies in this state. Some are large, some are small. So for Post, my mind was thinking, can Post provide minimum best practices? Because we're still talking about hiring, right? We're talking about the processes of hiring people. And again, been gone for a while, but I would be interested in hearing what Edgar has to say. What is the process for Anaheim? Just to see if that's something that other agencies are using. Do we have a list of best practices and then agencies can choose from that list what they want to do? I mean, how does
So we've had a lot of experience in changing the way we do things. In addition to the new legislation, the new language that's in there, we also have a civilian panel that sits on our hiring boards. So and that's every step. So if there's a civilian panel when you get initially you apply to be hired. Then when you promote to sergeant, there's a civilian panel that sits in on that process. And then when you promote to lieutenant and captain, all those processes are involved in that. I'd have to ask our HR director how that came about. That's been going on for quite some time now. But our city generally is ahead of the curve. We were the first in Orange County to get body-worn cameras. We were the first to have an Office of Independent Review. We have a Civilian Oversight Board, all those things. So I'd have to look and find out exactly when that started, but I do know that it's not just a panel of police officers that sit in through that initial hiring process and through all the promotion processes that go on. So again, I can't speak for everyone, but I do know that how we do it here in Anaheim is a little bit different sometimes.
And then again, Post doesn't do the actual hiring. They just give us tools with which we can hire. And to me, I would think as a board member, it would just be nice to have best practices across the board from north to south, east and west in California. So we're all working, especially with this implicit bias information for AB 846.
And I have to agree with you. This is LaWanda, board member. We have a problem within the county, within LA County. It's not the same practice just within the county from the law enforcement agencies. So I don't know how this will affect how they hire now, because we have a lot of law enforcement agencies within LA County, and each one is operated totally independent.
Tony, was there something else we talked about yesterday that you want to bring up?
So, we did get into that discussion of uniformity and some of the we discussed cultural competence, which I think Megan did bring up. And maybe Megan, I may follow up with you and ask you, was there any discussion in that meeting of adding cultural competence as another dimension that you use when you're in your evaluation of candidates? Did they make any mention of that? I know that right now the evaluation has 10 dimensions, and given the prompt of AB 846, I know that there was some discussion about adding multicultural or cultural competency as an 11th dimension when evaluating bias.
I don't have the answer to that since I wasn't a part of that conversation, but I can certainly ask and get back to you on that. I did want to add to the group that you can go to the Post website under hiring. There's a tab on hiring, and it specifically states what an agency must do as far as selecting a peace officer. There are specific tests that have to be passed, as well as the psychological and the medical evaluations that are required. But I would encourage you, there are a lot of Post regulations on officer selection, but I would encourage you all to look at that.
I know the other topics or other measurements that we brought up. We brought up background investigations. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, Sandra. We talked about this process beginning before you even get the post. And I think this goes back maybe to Sandra's initial comment about uniformity, the need to have. I feel like I'm got quite a bit of feedback here. There is a need to have that uniformity right at the beginning when that candidate comes to the agency. That candidate does not have to go to post, and so when they go to that agency, there has to be a greater consistency in that evaluation process if in fact we are trying to eliminate that bias that prevents an officer from being able to adequately perform their job. So I think we spent some time talking about that.
Well, I'll say this, the candidate doesn't go to post, has nothing to do with post. And Megan, if you could just give me a head shake prior to applying at an agency. When I applied for law enforcement, I went directly to the particular agency I was interested in. I put an application in, they give you a call back. You come in initially for your first either interview or, in my instance, 3,000 people showed up back in 1980 something. It was a long time ago. And we all had a multiple choice. We didn't really become members of Post until we were hired on by the agency, graduated, and then we got our Post ID number, if I remember, or did we get it in the academy? Again, I'm a little older than most of y'all on this meeting, so I really can't remember when I got my Post ID, which was B0189, which I still remember from 35 years ago. So Post does, I think what Post's position is helping all the agencies, not necessarily helping the individual citizen who wants to be a cop. And I agree with you, Tony, and Megan, I'm sorry, I still think there has to be guidelines. I'm looking, and she's right, there is something on Post that talks about hiring, and it's the minimum that law enforcement agencies have to have. But this whole thing with AB, I keep forgetting the number, 846. This is all new in the essence of bias, and I think that agencies should know, and I don't know if they can, that we should be looking at their Facebook pages, their Instagram pages, and through the background, we already are talking to neighbors and friends and family members. And then Megan already did mention about groups hate groups that some folks might be involved in. I don't know how we go about getting that information, but that also should be standardized for agencies across the nation. I was appalled recently to see law enforcement officers who took that oath going to the insurrection in Washington, D.C., because I took an oath to stand, you know, for the rights of the Constitution of the United States of America. We should be looking at people who are involved in those groups, and I don't know if that's coming from Post making those best practices, or, you know, as each individual agency, there's over 600. I don't know how we're all doing the same thing at the same time. So, again, I put it out there, but I'm not going to be here. I would love to stay, but I got to move. Any comments from anybody that's on the board? Anything further?
Yeah, hi Sandra. I have a comment again. This is Lawanda. I remember a couple of meetings ago, people said we were talking about when we hired law enforcement, they should be interviewed like we interviewed candidates for athletes. And that we do a little more looking into their backgrounds before we hire them. Because like you're saying, Post comes after we hire them. It's not in the beginning. And so those who are hiring or recruiting, maybe they should do like they said, like when we go hire an athlete or something like that, we look a little bit deeper and we try to figure out what's really going on. Maybe we can help in that.
Sorry, that all makes sense. I don't know where we go from it at this point. It goes back to the Post subcommittee members, and we'll have to figure out what to do with working with Post. But again, I just want to make sure that Post is just doing the best practices, that they're not hiring. So a lot of information out there. Sounds like what Megan said with your group of subject matter experts. I'm surprised there's not law enforcement out of that group. I heard doctor, and that's awesome. But someone that's involved in law enforcement, I think that would be a great subject matter expert to be on that committee also. Okay, sounds like Allison.
Well, I think it would also be helpful for the subcommittee to have a few ideas of things that you would all like. So, you know, we heard potential for civilian oversight boards or civilian participation in the hiring. We heard about social media checks, but if the board has other specific practices that you'd like more information, or if you know of other best practices from your own experience or what you think would be best practices, that would be helpful for us to hear about, so that we can do, sorry, there's a lot of work going on. So I'm going to mute myself now, but that would be helpful to hear from other board members about things that you would like further research or discussion on, so we can move forward a bit with some of the other ideas that may be separate from what Post is doing.
This is Melanie. I just think it'd be maybe helpful if we could get that list again that Megan read off, in terms of how the subject matter experts are going to be framing what they're going to be opining on or providing input on. And then maybe when we have time to sit with that for a little bit, if it's possible for us to provide additional feedback on that, I think that would be helpful at minimum. Because I think there is a lot of unique insight that they're going to have, but it might be good to give our input also in the kind of categories of information that they're going to be looking at to try to develop best practices on. So that's just a suggestion.
Okay, I think this is a good opportunity. I think we're done, and if we are done, I'd like to open it up for public comment. I think we're at that point. Is there anyone in the public who is interested in comments to what we just finished talking over the last hour or so? Any persons from the public that want to say something? Sophia. You see Sophia. Before you go, Sophia, you need to unmute, but also I would like to say for our public, if we can keep our comments down to about 3 minutes. I don't want to cut you off mid-word, and we'll give you a couple seconds to finish that. But we are at 3:35, so if you have any comments, Sophia's going to go first. Please let us know and keep it around 3 minutes. Thank you. Sophia, you have the board.
Yes, so I am Sophia Oyetunbi. I'm a case manager with the Transgender and Intersex Justice Project. And my question is really simple. I heard Megan talking about the psychological assessments that's used as part of the recruitment or potential hiring of your police officers. I guess what I want to ask is this psychological assessment, is this something that has always been used in the past, or has it been updated? Because in my mind, I think that if you're looking at police officers, not just people in the SWAT, but overall, it's an elite force taking care of the community. And so in my mind, I'm thinking of a psychological assessment that would be used for something like the Special Forces, the Delta Force, people in the military. They take very, very elite people. I spent 21 years in the military, and I was never part of that. But the point I'm making is that I think that should be part of the instrument of hiring your peace officers, having a very high standard by which the officers should meet under psychological assessments. So if you didn't understand my question, is the assessment the same as it's always been? Has it been updated? And if it has been updated, are you looking at making it more so that only the best of our communities are becoming police officers, not just anyone that can carry a gun?
Thank you, Sophia. That's your questions are spot on. That's what we're all hoping for. So I appreciate your comment. Is there anybody else that's from the public, North, Central, or Southern California, that wants to make a public comment? I'm checking the chat box to see if there's anybody there. Nope. So one more time, any other community member throughout California that wants to make a comment, a public comment? Okay. We all agree we got nothing? Two. I'm sorry. 2 chats just came up. Sophia, you're welcome. Okay. So I'll answer those chat ones. Sophia, thank you. I saw your 2 chats. Okay, well, we got about 10 minutes to discuss our next steps. And I would really like some of our host committee members, the RIPA board members, to start to talk about what are our next steps, because they're going to be your next steps in coming into this, to the rest of the year on these conversations. Anybody got anything that they want to talk about for the next steps in reference to what we've been talking about this last hour that are board members?
I would like to know, Sandra, I hate to see that you're leaving. This is LaWanda again. Will we ever see the data from the George Floyd protest from 2020, how law enforcement interact with that?
I can't answer that question. Maybe the DOJ might be able to answer that question.
Sorry, I missed the second. Okay, Nancy's.
Yeah, I missed that question. There was a lot of feedback. LaWanda, do you mind repeating that?
Yes, I hope it's not too much feedback. I just want to know, will we ever get the information regarding California after George Floyd incident, how law enforcement handled that? Because we're seeing in LA County, people are saying that law enforcement made a lot of mistakes when it came to the protest. But I just want to see it on the whole state level. What was the feedback? What the data say?
So I think that's a great question. We did see a lot of troubling images on television, and we are I don't know how much of that will translate into our data. I'm hoping that we will be able to see how that plays out. So our research center is in the process of compiling that data right now. It's due on April 1st from all of the law enforcement agencies. We can definitely explore with them to see if there are ways that we could, figure out whether or not these were incidents that related to any protests right around that date, because we have the timeframes and we know, and we can certainly also bring that up with the Stop Data subcommittee and talk to them about how they, if there's a way to do that. But I think that's a great idea, and thank you for bringing that up. And I hope I was answering your question correctly too.
Yes, you did. And I say thank you, because people are saying there was a lot of profiling going on there, and we need to know.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other board members want to talk about discussion of your next steps? Anybody that's on the board in reference to what we've been talking about? Thank you, LaWanda. I guess that's a no. Nancy, did you want to talk? You want to have closing words before we adjourn?
I do. Sandra, I think if you don't mind muting. Thank you. So I do want to thank both Sandra and Angela for their time on the board. Aisha is going to say a few words, but I also just want to say a few words as well. And so, Sandra, I met you, as you mentioned, I guess 2017, when we were first doing our first RIPA board report. Sandra served as our expert, and I got to know you very well, traveling to and from board meetings in Southern California from Oakland. And you were a frequent visitor in our Oakland office. And so I am going to particularly miss you. I consider you a friend, and I am been so honored to meet you, work with you, learn from you. And so it is definitely a blow to the board, but I understand that you are going to move on, and that's good for you, because I think it's a positive change. So congratulations on that. Oh, okay. And then Angela, I've known you since 2005, and worked with you for a very long time. I know you retired a little while ago, and you came back to the board, and it's been great to have you here. Angela was my direct supervisor at the time that the board started. Angela worked, and I worked with others in the civil rights enforcement section to kind of develop the RIPA board and the concept of what the board is. And so, she was really at the forefront in doing that work. And she was appointed to sit on the board, which was fantastic, by Attorney General Kamala Harris, and has been a RIPA board member and contributor in that capacity ever since that time. And so it is a loss to the board because you bring such a wealth of knowledge and background and information to this process, and will be missed as well. But of course, we wish you, we wish you great success. It sounds really exciting, your new appointment, and it's such an honor to be appointed to that position. And it obviously, our loss is their gain. And so Aisha was going to say a couple things as well. Aisha?
Yes, sure. I mean, two powerhouse people leaving our illustrious board. I'll start with Sandra. Sandra, and this is also for purposes of the other board members because it fills in what Nancy was saying with respect to how amazing these two board members have been. Former Lieutenant Sandra Brown, she's worked with the board since October 2017, and because of her background as a California police officer, a sheriff deputy, law enforcement executive, and a master national instructor on implicit bias, former Lieutenant Brown was initially retained by the Department of Justice to provide consulting services to the board. In that capacity, she provided invaluable assistance in structuring the board's early participation in and evaluations of the initial racial and identity profiling training. The training course is being developed by Post. Former Lieutenant Brown became RIPA board member Brown when in April 2018, she was appointed by the Senate. She did this while continuing to provide implicit bias training courses nationally for the Fair and Impartial Policing Organization in over 300 law enforcement agencies, probably 400 now. Board member Brown served as the co-chair of both the Peace Officer Standards and Training Subcommittee and the Calls for Service Subcommittee. Board member Brown's knowledge of law enforcement and passionate commitment, which you saw today, to training as a way to eliminate racial and identity profiling through education has been inspiring. Her work with fellow board members is contributing to the quality of the racial and identity implicit bias training being offered to California peace officers. So Sandra, we thank you for your commitment to your fellow board members, the Department of Justice, and to the people of California. And I will miss you. And Angela, I have to say, I have worked with Angela many years when in my capacity as the former affirmative action officer for the Department of Justice. So Angela served on the Racial and Identity Profiling Act Advisory Board as the Attorney General's designee. She was appointed to the RIPA board in 2016 while serving as a Senior Assistant Attorney General in the Civil Rights Section of DOJ, and as Nancy mentioned, was one of the original board members. Member Sierra served as co-chair of the Calls for Service Subcommittee, the Civilian Complaints Subcommittee, and as a member on the Post-Training and Recruitment Subcommittee. Angela has had a long career with the Department of Justice. As a civil rights attorney, board member Sierra was very knowledgeable on issues related to law enforcement and community relations. Board member Sierra provided leadership, made important contributions to discussions while moving issues forward toward inclusion in the annual reports. Additionally, she was committed to the work of the board, never hesitating to assist, whether it was to offer policy insight, frame an issue, review post-training courses, or nominate other board members to chair subcommittees. Angela, we want to thank you for your commitment and your work in eliminating racial and identity profiling in California, and we wish you all the best.
Aisha and Nancy, thank you so much. And I will miss everybody. And like I had said earlier, it's just been a true honor, and it's been an inspiration to work with all of you. So thank you.
And here, I say the same. I have all your numbers. And Nancy, thank you, Nancy. Nancy and I had conversations about school resource officers, which was really good times. All of you, keep up the good work. It's 2021.